century of startups, they always looking how to save money and how to hire somebody who can build the basic product fast and with front end and the back end. So yeah, cool. Yeah, so it has some differences from the regular JavaScript, of course, in terms of how to use it. Just a few things, but the language is JavaScript, so which is always great. So the first thing that I want to mention is require. So basically Node.js, besides your JavaScript that you are writing, you want to use some other packages or some other code. So that is why you use require to add these packages or codes to your project. If somebody familiar with React or any other front-end frameworks, you probably use import. But for the same thing for Node.js is require. Yeah, just different syntax. So yeah, Node uses modules, different modules. Again, you're just enhancing your code with someone's code as well. And modules, again, it just files and someone's code. So require loads the content of the module. So it takes, basically it's parsing whatever is inside this code, inside this file. And it can take a path to your code, let's say, or to the package. If you're using, you probably heard about NPM. So this is Node Package Manager. And that's basically so NPM is basically a platform where people publishing their packages and the companies and etc. And you have tons of them, like billions of packages that you can add to your project and use it. So you don't need to rebuild some feature because it's already been built by someone else. So you can just add it to your code and use it, which is always nice. So yeah, okay. So here's like basically two examples of how you can use it. So the first example is FS, which is a file system. This is a pre-built package in Node.js, so you don't need to install it separately. It's a part of Node.js. And another example is Lodash, which is just a library. It's very similar. You can see, you probably saw that on the front end as well. If you used to work with on the front end, it's just a library of someone's code, and that simplifies your life. For me personally, I don't like such libraries because modern JavaScript can handle pretty much everything that Lodash provides. So there is no reason to add another package and basically make your application heavier, and that means slower for the user. But yeah, again, it's just another package. So this is how you add in packages. You just require package, and this is it. Yeah, so file system, basically it allows you to read and write files. You can, with file system, you can create files and you can read them, you can modify them, etc. So you can actually communicate with files on your machine. So if you running your server locally, that is on your machine. If you deploying your server to some cloud solution, that will be on that machine, etc., on the virtual machine or whatever. But the whole point is that you can communicate with files and read them and write to them and modify, etc., create them, etc. For example, the user who wants to upload, when you on the front end, when you try to create an log into some system, it asks you to upload the avatar. So you upload in your photo. So you send in this photo to the backend. Backend will parse it and create a image file based on this data. So you've sent in like a just code as a string from front end to the backend. Backend will take it, parse it, and save it as an image file, so you can actually open this image and see it. So yeah, okay. Let's actually go to the code editor. Do you have any questions, by the way, so far? Is it clear to you? So let me actually do npmi init, sorry, init, almost. So I'm in npm. Before you can use any packages from npm, all you need is to create an environment for npm. So npm init, come on, will I spell it correctly? Init -y, this is like a shortcut. So yeah, okay, cool. We have a package JSON. It just created a package JSON, perfect. So now I want to create a file, index.js, right? And basically, just to show you, if you worked with front end, so you know what this console log means, right? Hello. So you say that this is a front end JavaScript, but the difference is that you will run it in like Node, and then you will have just index file, and you can have your console log. So now this is Node.js. So synchronous is asynchronous. Yeah, good question, but let me explain it slightly later when we start sending data from front end to back end. I will explain you in a few moments. Cool. So yeah, again, here this is your Node.js. So let's actually try to read files. Let's try to use our file system. So if you want to know how to use file system, you just need to go to fs node, and here you have all the documentation. So this is official documentation for file system. This is you can see that on the Node.js website, but as I said, this is a part of Node.js. That is why you can find it here. So let's actually edit. Const fs equals, as I said, you use require, right? And you just put in the name of the package, fs. Okay, so imagine that I will create a file, some, I don't know, text txt, right? And I'll put some text here. Hello from my file. And I want to read this file, right? So how to read the file? Let's go here and try to find read. So what we have a few options. I will show you read file. So we have read file. Ooh, we have quite a few options. Read file sync. We have read file basically and read file sync. This is two different things. And this is actually the synchronous, the read file sync. So read file is asynchronous, and read file sync is synchronous. So what is the difference? When you're working with synchronous code, it means that you're executing some output and you get the response. This is like inputs output, right? It's just you're getting it straight away. Asynchronous code, you're saying that okay, execute this code, it starts the process and you're going to do something else, and whenever you get the response or result of this asynchronous code, you will get this result. So it basically, your application is waiting until it process everything and return you. So here, you again, the file system has, for example, two ways of parsing, of reading files: synchronous and asynchronous. So yeah, let me actually show it to you. So with asynchronous, you have a callback, because that means that once it's been finished, you can it will trigger a callback. But for now, I want to keep it simple, so I want to just use read file sync. So let's go to documentation, and it says that you can use read file sync and pass the directory, right? So let's do my file, and I will use fs.read file sync, and I want to read my text txt, right? So let's console log my file, save it. So you know that to run your file again, you need to run your node and the file name, but there is a nice package in npm, nodemon npm. So it's basically listening for any changes that you will save. This is the same as node and file name, but it's actually listening for any changes. So you don't need to run it manually every time. So if I already installed it on the global level, so I can do just nodemon index, and now it's listening. So you can see that it's a buffer, right? This is how the data is stored. So you want to parse this data, right? You want to parse this data from the file, so you can actually make it readable. Does make sense, because we use storing this as just a computer code. Anyone? Yeah? Okay. No questions. So that means that you want to parse the result. And in JavaScript, you probably remember the method Json Parse, and you just providing, not JSON, wait a second. Sorry, so yeah, we're getting the text, but because it's not JSON, it's actually throwing me an error. So what we can do is just specifying, so if you have a JSON file, which is different thing a bit, but you can parse it with JSON stringify, but we can specify what data format we're expecting. So I am expecting just a regular text. So as a second argument, if you go here, so they have options and encoding. See, that's first is pass, second is can be encoding, and the flag. So encoding is what we're doing here. We're saying, okay, that should be a text. So let me just save it, and we have our text, right? So pretty simple. We're just reading our file. If you want to write it, there is another method. For example, let's say just write fs write file sync, and you provide the path again, text txt, and the second you want to let's say I want to rewrite, because by default it will rewrite with the content whatever you provided. So let's look for again for documentation, write file sync. So, and you can see that you send in data, right? So the second argument is data. So let's actually do that. So the second argument, my new text. So before I'm not saving, see that this dot, that means that I'm not saving. So we have the old text. Let me actually open split to right? So we have this text. Once I save, my node daemon will rerun the code here, and that will read the file, and then you will write it. So we technically don't need this for now. So I just saved, and you can see that it just modified my text, right? Does it make sense? Any questions? So it's replacing, right? This is a problem. That might be a problem. So what do you want to do? What do you want to, how you can keep the old text plus add a new text? Any ideas? So as you can see here, you're replacing, right? But you want to keep the old text and add this text. Write, what do you mean by write to file? Yeah, so how? So as in JavaScript or any other programming language, you can take your variable, right, and concatenate, right? For example, save, and you passing basically the what you eventually do. Let's say that you want to const new text, right? So what it does, it basically, it basically, the result of that is this, right? So let me just put it back. So you had the first part from here because we're reading it, and you're adding the second part, right? And you're adding it here. So that is why it modified the text. So if I save, put this new variable value here, I don't need this, so save, and you can see that we have a new text, right? So we're modifying. The only thing that this is just an old syntax, so it's better if you convert it to a new syntax. We discussed that on the last lesson last week, so you can actually watch the video on our YouTube to see what's going on here. But yeah, you can do this, right? It's actually just adding, and if every time I will save, it's just adding one more and more and more, right? So it's just modifying whatever I have in there, whatever I have there. Does make sense? Yep. Cool. Okay, so yeah, now imagine that you don't have the file txt, right? So if I remove it, right, so this one will fail because it doesn't exist. So we potentially get an error from JavaScript because it says that no such file or directory, right? So we can't read. But let's try just to just move this, just to write. So we have some new text, and you can see that I've saved. So let me just remove again. Clear here. Sorry. And if I save this, we just created a file, right? So it doesn't exist, you just creating a file with this text. That's easy. So you basically just easily can create files. So, and the last is how to delete files, right? So remove file. Let's look for the documentation. That's supposed to be a search. Delete. Just want to find you. Delete. Where's the box? Sorry. So this is watch. No, not this one. Remove. Come on, that should be that. Removes history and dear and promise. Unlink. So see, they have unlink function to remove files, and they have some this is a synchronous function, so you need to put a callback to it, right? So if we have unlink, and we have a synchronous one as usual. So this is what Node provides you. So pretty much for every method, it can be synchronous or asynchronous. So yeah, let's do fs. So you see that we've created a file, right? Let's wrap it into set timeout and say I want to remove this file in let's say in 1 second, or in 3 seconds. So we will see the difference. So we'll have fs unlink sync, and we are passing the route, right? So that be text txt. So what let me remove it manually first. So what will happen? We will create a file with the text, then we will wait for 3 seconds and remove it from my machine, right? So let's save. It's just been created and been deleted. See, it's disappeared and it shows that it's been deleted, right? So we are executing this function in 3 seconds. Pretty nice. So this is how simple you can create files and store your data, and you can actually create like a kind of local database without working with MySQL or any other database providers, and you can actually do something with with your data. So why we are doing all of that? Because I want to, we will get to the point where I will show you how to send data and receive data, etc. And we need to work with the file and the data in the file. So any questions before we move forward? No? I know it's always, everybody's shy for the first time, but come on. We're like a big family. Okay. Okay, let's go to the next part, which is Express. So Node by itself is a backend language, right? But quite often you can find that many languages natively, it's hard to write something on native language because the code is convoluted. If you want to create something basic, it's still, you need to write ridiculous amount of code. That is why Express is a framework which is the most popular framework for NodeJS, which allows you to create very lean application. In a few lines of code, you can create your server and actually communicate with it. So that is why, like, I think this is essential when you're learning backend with Node. This is essential framework that you need to learn and work with it. So basically, as a backend developer, what you need to know is JavaScript as a JavaScript plus Express. You also need to know like how to communicate with some system like processes and file system, etc. Some extra bits, but building endpoints is all in Express. So now we have, and my, for example, current project, we are using Nest.js, which is a new framework, huge framework. It's yeah, you can actually play with it, but I think that for the first steps, if you're just starting with the backend, start with Express because it's very simple and very readable for you to start and understand how does it work, how you communicate from the front end and sending data from the front end to the back end, and vice versa. Okay, so API, right? So the API is basically application programming interface. So this is how you, let's say, the rules you will communicate between two applications. So this is API, the meaning of API. And we will talk today, we will talk about REST API, which is a representational state transfer. So you're transferring data, you basically of the kind of current state. But the story is that today we will, and normally you will use only 4 methods, 4 kind of things, which is the abbreviation is CRUD, and you will hear about that probably many times. But CRUD is create data, read data, update data, and destroy data. And this is what we will do today. To achieve this, each of these from this list, we have a few methods. So we will not talk today about all of them. We will talk about basics. So we have get method to read data, to get data, post to send data, patch to update data, and delete to destroy data. And again, we will create a simple application today, so you will see how it works in reality. So yeah, the idea is, first thing is naming conventions. So plurals represents collection, so that means that you will get the list of something, right? When you use, where's my? So when you use let's say in the end, normally that comes as an ID of the asset you want to get. So from that list, you will get just one thing with, for example, ID 5 or whatever you pass, and whatever you by name or by ID or by, I don't know, city, anything you can get, and that will return you one thing. And another rule is that you have your plurals, and you have like new, and you will get basically you can create a new thing on your database on the server side. So yeah, plural, specific one, and the new. So here, an example, we have get to-dos, so that will return us a list of all to-dos. Get to-dos with 5, that will return us the to-do with ID 5 in my case. That's actually wrong. So sorry, my bad. So post, that will be to-dos and new, for example. And here you have patch, so you will modify specific one, and delete, again you'll removing specific one by ID in our case, for example. To create a basic server with Express, this is all you need. You basically import in Express, right? So let me remove these things, and I want to import Express. I want to require Express. So the problem is that I haven't installed that, right? So if I save, it says that it can't find the module Express. That is why, and the problem is that here we don't have any we didn't install this package, because Express is a package, right? The module. So what we want to do, I want to install npm I Express, right? So I'm installing Express, and you can see that now I have a dependency Express in my application. So if I rerun my application, there is no errors, right? Because we installed in Node modules, we installed our Express package. So then you just need to create an instance of the, can you again explain? Oh yeah, so the question is, can you again explain what to-dos 5 does? So you have a list of to-dos, and 5 means that you want to return, for example, just one to-do with ID 5. So if you say 2, I want to return ID the to-do with ID 2. And I will show again, we will start creating the application, and you will see the difference, what we are getting. So by this parameter. Yeah. That can be a name, that can be anything. It's up to you, and you will, again, I will show you in a second how it actually works in the application. But yeah. Okay, so let me close this one. We have an Express. So now I'm creating an application instance of my application, So express, I'm calling it. We have an application, app.listen, and we have a call. So we need to pass the argument on which port you want to run your server, and we have a callback function just for us to see that it's actually running. So I put just console log. Ooh, sorry, log. Yeah, so here we want to have running on port 3000. Port 3000. Save, and you can see that it's running. So we actually have a server. It does nothing for now, but actually we already have a server that is running. This is it. So the other thing, that when you send in data from front end to back end and from back end to front end, you're not sending actually some complex data, you send in strings. The format we call it JSON, and so you're not sending actual data, everything is a string. So you want, every time you receive the query or some parcel, let's say from the front end, you want to parse it, you want to get everything and transform into actual data. That is why here in our documentation I put, and please don't forget when you try to build your own application after our lesson, you can add middleware, so it will intercept the incoming data and parse, convert it to the actual object. So all you need is app.use, and you will have your JSON parser, right? So you have express from the express and JSON. So express.json, and this is it. So now all your data will be parsed. So let's create a very basic endpoint for the app. So I will create, I'm taking my app dot, and here I'm specifying what method I want to handle. And I want to handle get method, right? The method from this list, get, post, patch, or delete, right? So I want to handle get method, and first argument, so get is a function, and it takes two arguments. First argument is the URL, basically the endpoint you want to create. And you're saying, for example, just a root, right? Or you can, I don't know, kitten, for example. This is your URL. So because we are running on localhost 3000, right? Because the port is 3000, so my URL to hit this endpoint will be localhost 3000 kitten, right? With get method. So that will be the endpoint. And the second argument for this function is actually a callback where you have request and response. So request means the data that is coming to you, and response means the data that you want to send back to the front end, right? Request coming to you to the from front end to back end, and response is something that you're sending in return. So let's say that once somebody hit the endpoint kitten, you just want to response send hello, my first endpoint. Yeah, right. This is it. So let's go actually and open the code base. Base. Come on, Postman. 1 second. It's opening. Come on. 1 moment. Perfect. So now, as I said, don't save. So we have a localhost 3000, right? This is the one that we set up, and kitten, right? This is what we did here, kitten. So let's send the get request. So you specify in Postman So Postman is just a way you mocking up calls where you don't need to build a front end to test your backend. You can just use this tool to imitate calls to your backend. So you're selecting get method. We have our localhost 3000 because this is a port 3000. And you have your endpoint kitten because we specify it here. So now if I click send, we are getting our response, right? You can see that, hello, my first endpoint. This is what we actually sending from the backend. Does it make sense? Any questions? No? Yes? Maybe? Okay. Anyone else? No? Cool. Okay. Yeah. So let's actually create some application that so we can create to-dos. Yeah. I think that would be good. So request. Yeah. Request. There is no request. So request will come with basically with post. So in post, you can hide some data, and we will do that again for our application that we want to build today. We will put something, and we will get some data from requests. So request is a huge object by default. We just don't send anything. So if you console log, request, you have data from the URL. So you see that no console log here so far. But if I hit this endpoint, we are getting our request, right? It's a huge, huge object. So if you want to, for example, we have our to-dos, right? To-dos. So this is a new, just I renamed the endpoint. So here that should be to-dos. So hit, and we are getting the same thing. But in your request, you can get, for example, you want to have specific to do. So you're saying ID, right? You see this column, that means that this is a variable. This is not just hard-coded value. So it's not to-dos /ID. It's to-dos / and whatever it comes, that will be treated as ID. So here I will put, for example, 5, right? So here I can get my params and save it. So if I hit the endpoint, sorry, you can see that I have my ID 5, right? If I put 10, send, I have 10, right? If I use name, for example, so this represents the key in your object. So save, send, and now it's name 10, right? So here with column, you're saying that this is a variable, that whatever word you will use here will be a key for your parameters, and this is what you have here, right? So you have a value. Does it make sense? Okay, and again, we will get there today. But if you want to pass some data, actually, we will create to-dos today. You can get this data from body, but our body is empty because it's a get method. So if I send a request, oh, okay, it's actually sending because we have something here. Yeah, sorry, my bad. So remove, send again. It's empty object, right? By default. Cool. Yeah. Amazing. So let's actually try. Let's try to create these to-dos, right? So I will create a file, to-dos.json, right? It's empty, and I will create so the endpoint to-dos. Let's start creating our endpoints. So for to-dos, I want to respond with that will be JSON, right? And I want to read my files. So that means that I want to const to-dos. That will be fs read file sync, right? So I'm reading my file. I'm saying where my file is. So it is on the same level, to-dos.json. And I'm just sending this file to the front end. Yeah. And probably status, let me add status 200, so this is access, and sending JSON file to all my to-dos. So let's see, if I hit this endpoint again, right, because we have just to-dos, just send. Oh, all right, we didn't parse the data, my bad. So we need to basically do json.parse to-dos. So let's do it again. Send. Stringify. I might be 1 second. So what it says, that unexpected end of JSON input. Ah, right, because JSON should has parentheses. Curly brackets, sorry, curly brackets. So if I send it again, yeah, perfect. Now it's valid. We have just empty object, right? So if we have some to do, sorry, console, come on. So actually, we want to have not an object, maybe object to do's, and here we'll have an array where we'll have an object. So JSON is not a regular object, it requires parentheses and actually double quotes, sorry. So here we want to have ID and, for example, I don't know, 1, yeah, let's start with 1, and then we have text, I don't know, read a book. Save it. So now, if I send the request, I'm getting response, right, of my to-dos. And theoretically, we probably want to have so parse to-dos, and here we want to let me actually just, because it's nested object, so it's not a flat object. Theoretically, we have two options. First, make it just an array. That will be also valid. So we will get rid of the top level, so that will be just a list, right? Which is fine for us. If you have multiple things, probably this is not the option. So you want to have actually the to-dos here. So that means that I want here const, let me rename it to row, and here that will be to-dos dot to-dos, as I remember. Or maybe I can actually just use modern JavaScript and destructure to-dos from the whatever I'm getting here, right? So row, parse, this one, something like that. So what I'm doing here is I'm reading my file. Inside this file, I have to-dos, right, as a key. So this is an object with a key to-dos and the value, which is an array. So I'm taking this object, parsing it, so I'm converting it into actual object, and destructuring this object by getting the value of to-dos, key, right? So key is here. That is why it is to-dos. It can't be kitten because there is no key kitten. If I create a key kitten, for example, kitten, then I can do, I can get it, right? Hello. So, but we don't need it, right? So that means that destructuring works like that. So to-dos, save, click, yeah, works the same. Perfect. So let me actually remove our to-do, and that will be just a pure, that will be just an empty object, empty array for the beginning, right? So we don't have any to-dos, but we have a method to get them, right? So let's create another endpoint where we want to not get, but we want to post the new to-do, right? So this is what we said, that we want to post to just to-dos, right? So we have post, we will post something, and that means that we will get the data here. So const request data, let's say, or maybe just new to do. That will be request dot body, right? Something like that. So that will be our new to do. So just for now, forget about these two things. I want to send new to do as a, so we are receiving to do, and as a response, we are sending back this to do, right? So if I go here, I will change to post. I'm selecting in body. I'm selecting, oh, so this is a kind of a user, right? Let me create, so we want to just pass text. Again, that should be a JSON format. So text, read, book, right? So we are sending a new to do to the backend. So send, and I'm getting this back, right? So the message going to my server receiving it, and we responding the same message to the front end. That is why we are getting it here. Make sense? I hope so. Okay, so once we want to store our to-dos and assign them IDs, right? So remember that I said if you want to add something to the file, you need to read it, add something to the file, and then respond and modify it and store it back, right? So this is what we will do here. We're reading to-dos, we're parsing our to-dos, right? So here, actually, we don't want to parse to-dos. We want to have just a whole object. Let's say to-dos file, and here what we will do is dot to-dos, right? Then we want to do push, because we want to add a new to-do to our to-dos. So we have a modified object, and then we want to do basically write, right? So we want to have fs.write, write file, file sync. Again, you're selecting where is my file, which is todos.json, and then you stringifying your JSON, stringify, so you're converting back to JSON the new to-dos. Like this, right? And this is pretty much it. So if I save, we have an empty list, right? If I click send, now you have it in our file. Yeah, but you can see that we have just text, right? We want to generate ID. So what I will do, because each item should have own ID, and there is a lot of ways to generate IDs, but I will just use a very primitive one. What does request body do? So request is, again, this is the whole thing that's coming from front end to you, and body is whatever you're sending in body. You can see that it is body, and this is a place where you can actually send data, where you can actually take whatever you want and send it to the backend. This is how you send in something to the data. You put in that into body, That is why it's request.body, because you've sent in it in a body. Make sense? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So again, here we have our to-do. So it's a bit ugly. I would say that we probably want to create a function for that to process this thing. So, but for now it is working. So to add ID, what I will do, we have a list of to-dos, right? So what I will do is I want to basically, let me just change the order to save a few things. So we have to-dos and we have request body. So new to-do, that will be, I'm just thinking, yeah, new to-do will be the body, whatever we send in. So I'm destructuring the body. And I will add ID, which will be, for in our case, the lengths of these files. Not actually lengths. We will we need to take the last one. So here we want to decide, again, to generate the ID is always kind of a thing. But what we can do is just take not the lengths. So we need to check. It's very ugly. We will clean it up in a second. But const new to do ID, that will be so if the lengths, if the to-dos file lengths actually to-dos lengths, right? So we are looking for how many to-dos we have here inside this array. So it's saying if the length is truthy, so we have something inside this array, we want to take the to-dos, the last one from the array, that will be very ugly, -1 dot ID, right? So what we are doing, we're taking the last to do in this array and taking the ID, if that exists inside. If not, so else, I'm just setting 1, hard coding. So now that will be your to do. And if I save it, I will see here, sorry, I just want to clean up a bit. So if I save it, we don't have anything, right? But if I send my first request again, like this post method, we just got a new to do with ID 1, and you can see that we have 1 ID here, right? If I send it for the second time, it's actually, we have ID 1. Okay, so let's see why it doesn't work. Let me send it again. Yeah, again 1, perfect. So my logic doesn't work. So let's see if to do's lengths truthy. So as always, console log, we can check lengths, save. Let's trigger 1. We have 3, so it's positive. So to do's lengths -1. Okay, let's see what the number we will have here. Let's see. Send just 1. That's interesting. Why is that? That's very interesting. So let me check what's going on here. So this number, I want to see this number, and I want to see the, yeah, pretty much it. Save. Let's do it again. So we have 4 and we still have 1. Ah, right. Yeah, so that's true. That's 1 because we're not incrementing. So the value is correct. But why we have, let me just format it actually. So that's correct. This is just 1. But why the new to do ID still return us right. I forgot to increment, right? We want to take the last ID plus 1, so we want to increment it. This is a problem. Now that should work. So if I remove all my to-dos, save it, send for the first one, this is 1. Send for the second one, this is 2. So yeah, now it's incrementing. Perfect. Blind me, right? So you just need to increment your new ID. So here we will do this part many times for each method. So what I want to do is just outsource it to some function, like const get to-dos, or maybe parse to-dos, and that will be just whatever we do here, and we want to return it, right? So we will return this stuff. So we will have our just to-dos file that will be just this function, parse to-dos. We don't need this anymore, right? We will reuse, and same here. We can just basically do this. Where's my to-dos? Put it here. So we are reusing our code now, right? Yeah, make more sense. Okay, so we have post, right? So we're sending data from the front end. Let's actually try it again. So I will remove all my to-dos from here. So removing empty file, right? Send it. We have 1. Then we want to send another one. We have 2. Yeah, perfect. So let's do update. Let's do the another method, which is patch, right? So let's create another method, another endpoint. It's basically the same. So we have here app. Oh, by the way, I forgot to. Yeah, let's do that first. So we have to-dos app, to-dos for get and post, right? So let's add another one, which will be get, but specific to do, right? So we will have to-dos, and here by ID, right? So we will get our to-dos by ID, request, response, and that will be just another call. So what we will do is, again, we are reading all our to-dos, right? So we potentially want to parse to-dos as we did for get, and I want to find to-do, right? So const requested to-do. So what I will do, I have an array, but I want to find by ID, right? So here that will be to do. Where's to do? Dot ID equals to our request dot params dot ID, right? That will fail. So this is important, like just a JavaScript thing, right? So if you try, so here you can see that this is a number, right? And I have, from the URL, you always get strings. So that means that you need you need to parse your URL basically, right? So that means you want to convert this string into a number. So what you need to do is just parse int, and yeah, and this is it. So now you can compare. So you have requested to do, and here you might not find one, right? So you want to say that if requested to do is true C, you want to response status to 100, and then you have JSON requested to do, right? So you're sending the to do back. If not, so you want to, so you want to have your else. So if we can't find it, we want to response with status 404, right? 404, so it's not found, and send something like, maybe actually a JSON, but maybe a message. Let's send a message. Let's send actually a JSON with, which is an object, message to do not found, right? Let's save it. So what we have here, if we try to get by what? By, let me think. Oh, sorry. So if we try to get our to-dos by, let's say what we have here. We have 1 and 2, right? So if we click 2, send, so we don't have anything here in params, so just send, we're getting it back, right? Give me a second, just a second. Yeah, I'm back. Sorry. So yeah, basically you're getting the your to do, right? But if you look for with ID 4 send, you're getting the 404, and to do is not found. Yeah, so you're handling an error. Any questions on this one? Yes, no? Okay, I'll take it as no. Cool. Yeah, so this is how we created our get for specific to do. So let's move to batch. So I want to modify my to do, because you can see that we have 2 to dos with the same text, right? So I want to modify one. So add batch, and here we will have the same URL, right? So we want to modify specific to dos. We want to modify specific to do, and we have our request, response, and here. Ooh, sorry, I just broke my get method. And here, again, we want to parse our to-dos, right? We basically want to do this. Right, so here, we're looking for to-dos, and if it's been found, so basically it's very similar thing. So if it's been found, we want to modify it, right? First of all, we want to modify, so we want to change this. So if we can't find it, we'll respond with the same error, right? But if we find it, we want to modify our text in this to do with whatever we are getting from our request body. So technically, we want to just replace, rewrite our to-do. So what we will do is actually just rewrite we've taken everything we have in the old to-do. So we're destructuring everything from the old to-do, and we are adding, how far? And we want to add the new to-do. So request.body, right? So we combine two things. How far do I need to scroll? Sorry. Parse to-dos. Oh yeah, parse to-dos. Okay, yeah. What we're doing here, reading file and parsing whatever it is in this file. Just two things. Yeah. Perfect. Cool. So now here we're merging basically the new to-do. We probably can just create a new to-do, const modified to-do, right? And then I'm just thinking about what do we want, how, so we found to do, then we modified, we actually here, we have to-dos. So yeah, we actually, we need to do it slightly different. So because we want to modify so this is an array of to-dos, right? So I don't want to destructure it. Again, I want to use as an object. And we call that before to-dos file, right? So to-dos file. So in to-dos file dot to-dos, I want to request it to do, I want to find index. So find index, because I want to find the position that to do I want to modify. So then I can do this. I'm taking my to-dos, square brackets, requested to do index, right? And I'm modifying it. Hope that doesn't make sense, by the way. I hope so. So I'm reading the file, finding the to-do by ID, position it in the array, and then I'm modifying this to-do with the new data. I'm taking the old data, by the way, that should be this, and I'm spreading the new data that I've just got, right? So let me see how does it work. So we've saved, now we want to store this, rewrite our file basically, right? So fs write file sync. We're saying which file we want to write, which is todos.json, and then we want to JSON stringify, and we're storing our to-dos back, modified with the modified to-dos, right? And then we are responding with a success, right? With a modified to-dos probably, so we can actually respond with this one, right? With that to-do. So let's see. So for now, we have the same text, right? If you try to modify with patch, if you try to modify the force to the with ID 4, right? Ooh, okay. Are we handling patch? Wait a moment. So it says a request is not defined. Requested to do. Okay. Is not defined. What does it mean? Sorry. So index 47. Oh, right. My condition. Sorry. So I forgot to update this one, right? Save it. So find index. Does anyone know how find index works? Okay. So find index, if you find, it will return you an index, right? Otherwise, it returns -1. So you can't actually use just as it is, because -1 also true C value. So you want here basically to say more or equal 0, right? Yeah. So this is the edge case basically that you want to check. Okay, let's save it. Try again. Perfect. Not found. Yeah, because we tried to modify the force. But if I try to modify with ID 2, I need to go to body and put text, and I will put my new text, right? So for now we have read a book for the second one, but I want to change it to my new text. Send it. So I got the response that it's been modified, and here you can see that I modified my text. Yeah. Does it make sense? Yeah, yeah, exactly. So not position, but with the ID too. The position is 1 actually, because in array, it's starting from 0, so 0, 1. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Perfect. So let's move actually to the last one, which is delete. So app.delete, you might guess, and that will be same URL, right? Todos / ID. So I want to remove by ID, and here you'll have request response, and all you need is, like, let's say const remove ID, and that will be again parse int, because that should be a number, request dot ID, right? Yeah, params ID. Okay, so now we want to read our file again. Yeah, then I want to find it by ID, and then I want to so we can just do this, or we might use as we used that before, so we don't need removed ID. So we just parsing it here directly. So then with JavaScript, you take your to-dos file dot to-dos dot splice. It's splice. Can anyone remind me? I think it's splice. Then you take in the index you want to remove from and say, I think it's 0, or 1, maybe 1. Let's remind, because I don't remember. Splice.js. So that takes splice replace. Yeah, so you're replacing insert, or you want to delete. Let me actually check it. This is how I normally debug something quickly. So what I'm doing is just an array 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dot splice, and I want to remove the, let's say 2, 0. Is it just 1? Yeah, potential just, yeah, I need you defining how many elements. Perfect. So if I do this, let test. So test. Okay, so now test is, yeah, perfect. So you just need to put the index and then you put in 1. Amazing. So here, increment index by 1. Yeah, also true. So here you splice in the element from the array, right? But again, we basically want to have this condition, right? So if this element exists, then we want to do this, right? We want to remove the element, and we want to probably so we will get as a result removed to do. So this is what splice does. It takes the element that it is removing and returning to you, so you can assign it back. So what you can do is just return it to your user, and you want to rewrite your database. This is what we're doing, right? We rewrite in our database. Otherwise, you're returning nothing. So let's actually check that. So if I change it to delete, right, and try to delete with ID 5, send to do not found, right? Because we have just 1 and 2. But if I try to delete the second one, click, we've deleted this one, and if you go to the file, it doesn't exist anymore, right? That's simple. So basically now we covered the whole CRUD, right? You can create you can read your element, you can read your to-dos, you can create to-dos, to-do, you can read specific to-do, modify your to-do, and delete your to-do. And again, if you go to, for example, get and read all your to-dos, it will return you just 1 because you have just 1. If you go to post, go to to-dos, let's post it. So we've added 1. Let's add another one, 3, maybe 4. And now if you change it to get, to-dos, get, you have all your to-dos in response, right? So from the front end, now you can actually get all of them. So you have 1, 2, 3, and 4. And you can get specific one by querying by ID, for example. Click, and you're getting your third one, right? And you can delete, for example, fourth one, you just removed. So now if you go to get, so fourth one, not found, and if you go to to-dos, it doesn't exist in the array. You can see how in hour and a half, you can create the whole CRUD for your application. And then on the front end, you just use fetch to send data, get data, etc. So you will do all of that from the front end. But this is how simple is to create the endpoints and the server with Express. Just if actually how much? So how many? It's 75 lines, right? And we can definitely clean it up because we have some JavaScript logic that we're repeating, right? So we can actually delegate it somewhere and reuse this function. But yeah, again, it's about polishing. The whole point here is that it's very easy just to build your server with Node and Express and actually build a full stack application with a front end. So you can deploy your application to, for example, I think that Heroku allows you to publish your applications for free. I think if you go to pricing, yeah, they have a free plan. So you can actually deploy your backend and build your front end. For example, you can host it on a GitHub or on a Firebase. It's also free, and connect it, right? It will fetching your data, sending data, etc. So this is how easy you can actually create your applications. It's not much. Of course, if you start digging you probably want to handle other errors. What if this server do not respond? What different errors, and like that becomes more and more complicated and sophisticated. But it's just you have a skeleton, and then you can just improve your code, so it will work properly. Right? Do you have any questions? No? Yes? Maybe? Yeah, so the next session is the next week, of course. So this is summer with coders in hoods. So the next week will be another session. And I think that will be about HTML and CSS building the landing page. So I will show you how to build the landing page, what approach to use, and where to start. So you will build let's say write HTML that you will not be let's say you will not be guilty for it in a few months, because I found that many developers, good developers, they have no clue how to write proper HTML, and their HTML is just insanely bad, like insanely bad. That is why I'm running this HTML and CSS session, just to show you how to approach your layouts and where to start with building and writing your HTML, how to optimize the process, how to do it faster, etc. But yeah, I saw many. I was working as an instructor in Flatiron, and I remember the students how they were struggling. So by the way, you probably already, if you trying to learn front end, you probably already struggled with CSS. But trust me, like keep repeating to everyone that when you're struggling with CSS, it's probably your HTML. It's not your CSS. Because people do not understand that how to write the proper HTML. That is why CSS becomes a nightmare. And it is. And if I take, for example, with my experience, if I take the shitty HTML layout, for me it will be a nightmare to write a CSS. But if you have a correct CSS, correct HTML, you will see how easy it is to write and position your elements with CSS. So yeah. Okay, cool. So thank you for today. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. If not, then next week we have another session, and yeah, the whole summer, every week we will have more lessons. We will have lessons for game development, etc. So hope you will join us in the future. As I said, the video will be uploaded to our YouTube channel if you want to revisit, and feel free to join our Slack. Thank you. And
thanks very much. Thank you.
Yeah, have a good evening or day.
You too, bye.
Huh?
I said you too. Enjoy the weekend.
Okay, thank you. See you, Dario.
See ya.
Bye.